So it is an absolutely beautiful day outside, definitely helping to raise my spirits a little bit. I was just outside and enjoying the sun, spraying down some towels that had some lint in them. My dad decided it would be a good idea to put this blanket into the washer, but the blanket was not the right material and needed to be hand washed. And so, of course, the washer tore it apart and it got lint everywhere. So that's what I was just doing. It's really nice to just be outside in the sun and barefoot, you know, because you can't do that during the winter. I mean, you can, but it's freezing. In the summertime, it's like, oh, the grass is warm and the concrete's hot, and then you like spray down the concrete with water so it's not as hot, but then it gets kind of warm. Good times. Anyway, I was thinking, and one of the things that Dr. Jordan Peterson said the other day, or maybe not the other day, but I watched the video the other day, and he talked about having a spirituality, and then you have to act out your spirituality in your life. So having a spirituality or whatever is about how do I live my life. And so when you have a sense of spirituality or whatever, you have to act out your beliefs in your own life. You know, if you truly believe something. And because really, in the grand scheme of things, right, when you look at a religion, what it says about the cosmos in terms of like who created it, how it came to be here, whether it was a big bang or creationist or some other way, you know, what we're made of and how everything works, it just doesn't really matter. What really matters is how you live. There's nothing really else that matters. The things that you have don't matter. The things that you do matter. You know, so I've come to the conclusion that we need to be living our lives through principles and not rules. You know, to me, a principle is higher than a rule, because you base your rules off of principles, or at least that's how it should be done. If you're not basing your rules for your life off of something that a principle or something that's overarching that umbrellas, you know, the different rules, then what's the point? It brings me back to my history teacher that I had, I think in 11th grade. I had two amazing history teachers, and it's unfortunate because the material they were working with was, of course, postmodernist, you know, reconstructionist and shit, and you know, they did both of them, I think, did a really, really good job. So I had really good teachers in high school who didn't get the impression that they were a little bit more conservative, especially since they were men. Anyway, so appreciate those people. But the thing that my 11th grade history teacher kept saying over and over again, and he drilled this into us, he said that the U.S. Constitution is based off of principles and not laws. Principles, not rules. And he made us repeat this over and over again. Very, very important. And it makes a lot of sense. What happens when a Congress of a particular state, or the U.S. Congress or whatever, makes a law, and the law gets implemented, and then somebody complains about the law, gets in trouble because they broke the law, right? They take it to a court, and eventually, after a long period of time, if it's significant enough, it gets to the Supreme Court, right? What does the Supreme Court do? It has to decide whether or not that law is constitutional. And so, the Supreme Court has to look at the principles that the U.S. Constitution was founded on, along with the actual law within the U.S. Constitution. Principles are really, really important. For instance, like popular sovereignty. It's the reason why we get to vote. We get to choose our leaders. Now, we've done really, really stupid in the past about our leaders, you know, like I'm not saying George Bush was like a good choice. Maybe a better choice, maybe not. I'm not saying he was a great choice. We could do better as a nation, that's for damn sure. But we still get to vote. And if you look at like the principle of popular sovereignty, you know, it makes sense that the women's rights movement was able to get an amendment passed saying that women and minorities and stuff could vote. That's the reason why the principle of popular sovereignty is why that went through. And if you're gonna see women as people, then you have to give them the right to vote. Alright. What other principles in the U.S. Constitution? It's been a while since I've actually studied this. Just a lot of freedoms and rights and stuff. I can't remember all the principles. There's like, I want to say like 7 or 9 of them or something that the U.S. Constitution is based off of. It's really interesting. Maybe I'll do a video on that in the future after I look it up and do some research. And so, what sort of principles, though, does a regular person need to live their life by? I mean, I don't think we have to make life complicated for ourselves. I think that being principled just means that you have a set of ideals that you're working towards. And you have an idea of what that ideal looks like and can aim for it. And so, you know, even like, you look into like the spiritual realm, you know, and you see some of this in the teachings of different spiritual leaders, like, for instance, Jesus Christ. And I know a lot about Christianity, so I talk about it a lot. If you don't like that, I don't apologize, actually. I think you should let go of it, because it's just a method by which I'm trying to communicate some sort of idea or information. But Jesus Christ came down and he looked at all the Mosaic rules. He looked at all those, you know, and what he ended up saying was that all of those rules fall under 2 principles. And he called them 2 commandments, but I would call them principles because they're overarching and convey, you know, an overarching idea that you can apply in almost any situation. So his 2 principles by which you live by: love God and love everyone else. That's it. It's really simple. Okay, so then the confusion comes in. How do you love? What does love look like? And that's where you get differences in people and Christians and stuff, but you start with those 2 commandments. Those should be the principles of your life. That's what Jesus said. If you're a Christian, theoretically, from my understanding, one principle you live by is that you're supposed to love God. Another is that you were supposed to love everyone else. And a third is that you're supposed to believe in Jesus Christ in order to have a connection with God. Okay? 3 really simple principles by which to live by. They're not that complicated. They're not a long list of rules. They actually allow for quite a bit of freedom in how you live your life. And so I just think that people get really bogged down about the rules, you know? Like the SJWs, they want to make laws and rules about what you can and can't say regarding somebody's gender or bullying or so on and so forth. But I think a better discussion to have is not one about rules, because rules just make people angry. Quite frankly, I mean, look at what happens when the SJW started their shit. There was a backlash. Eventually, there was a backlash where people came out and they're like, fuck your rules are fucking stupid. We're not gonna do it. And so we need to start talking about principles, not the rules. You know, and the thing about this is, too, this means that every case is situation by situation. If you start living by principles and not rules, it's case by case situation. So, if you come across one trans person and you think that they are male when in fact they want to be called female, and you call him sir on accident, I, by principle, think that that should be judged differently than somebody who comes in and walks up to a trans person who's clearly trans and clearly trying to pass and purposefully says the opposite gender in order to intentionally hurt them. I think they should be judged differently. But at the same time, I don't think the guy intentionally calling the trans person by the opposite gender is as bad as somebody taking a machine gun into a room of people and blowing them away. There's different levels. There just are. Your principles, though, have to be kind of overarching for every situation. So the principle here is that you don't want to hurt somebody. You don't want to cause them suffering. Because as a principle, it makes sense. You yourself suffer. Everybody suffers. And so if everybody is in the same boat, we should all be trying to help each other, not suffer so much. You know, you get so much more done when you have 2 people working at a problem than when you have only one person working at a problem. So we need to help each other. And so it's a good principle to live by, that you wouldn't want to cause suffering. So when you judge people, you can either judge them by the rules, which technically, if you look at that one rule about what you can and can't say about somebody's gender, the first person broke the law, the second person broke the law, but the third person didn't. I'm talking about that specific law. But if you apply a principle to that situation, all 3 of those situations, you can go, the first one's not a big deal, the second one's kind of mean, and he should go fuck himself, and then the third one is like, oh my god, what the fuck? I can't believe that just, shit! By the way, that should be the response every time there's a terrorist attack, but there's not, because we're so used to it. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to, like, follow anybody else's path. You figure it out for yourself. I think there are certain principles by which we should be trying to promote better behavior from other people. But the way you do that is by instilling principles into people, not trying to force rules onto them. I'm glad that I grew up as a Christian, because even though it's not like cool whatever to be a Christian, and you know, God's supposedly dead, I think it instilled me with a sense of, you know, compassion and empathy that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. You know, being raised in that kind of environment, especially with the type of dad that I have, who is a very compassionate, loving man. But it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect either. I mean, you look at someone like Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin, one of the founding fathers, you know, he liked to engage in a little bit of debauchery. You know, overindulged a little bit too much. I thought he was a kinky bastard. He spent a lot of time in France. You know what they say about the French. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day. And, you know, just try to figure out what your principles are, because you gotta know what your principles are before you understand how you are supposed to act in the world. And then you need to go out and actually act out your principles. And you remember, when you come up with a principle, it needs to be something that you can apply in just about every situation. So, like I said, my suggestion of, you know, very Christian idea of love everybody would be, you don't want to do anything that causes unnecessary suffering to somebody else. And you can apply that in all situations, whether or not it's your taxi driver being pleasant in demeanor and not being obnoxious or trying to make them cry, all the way to whether or not you should slaughter infidels. So there you go. The principles by which you live are really important. So just take some time, try to figure those out for yourself. I'm still discovering my own. I'm trying, and you know what? I'm still really young, and I think I'm starting to figure some of it out. Maybe not, but I'm at least trying. So maybe you should give that a shot too.